Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound podcast, the show where, as always, we're hitting you with them elbows of knowledge. And the PFL heads to San Diego. McKee taking on Isbulaev in the main event. If you're enjoying the content, you know what to do. Hit that like and subscribe button as we've got a full 10-fight card to break down for you. Carlos's breakdowns are in. And without further ado, let's dive right in to the early prelim opener. And kicking things off at PFL San Diego, we've got Cobey Fehr taking on Daniel Bzdigian. Bzdigian making his pro debut here in the PFL. I believe he had about 3 amateur bouts. And one of the things that I think that Fehr has to be worried about here with Bzdigian is he does have a nice high elbow guillotine. You go watch tape on Bzdigian. In one of his fights, his opponent comes out, shoots a nice double leg, leaves their neck exposed, and he snatches up that neck with precision. He is very tall. He is very rangy. And obviously Fehr, if you didn't know, if you go watch tape on him, he trains out of Extreme Couture. He is primarily a wrestler, very light on the feet, does have good stand-up, but he looks a little bit uncomfortable when you can tell that he feels much more comfortable shooting in for his takedowns. And at times, he shoots in at desperate takedowns in order to be able to get the fight to the ground, where obviously he feels much more comfortable. On the feet, he is very light. He is very active, looking to kind of stand and strike, but you can tell that's not where he has success. He has success when he gets on top into dominant positions, looks to throw ground and pound. And I am going to be picking Fehr here. Obviously 3-0 in his professional career. Obviously had a good camp, a good training camp in Extreme Couture, high-level guys that he's training with. I just worry in this fight that he goes to the wrestling too soon and shoots sloppy takedowns, where Bzdigian has shown that he can, really snatch up a neck with a good guillotine. So I am going to be picking Fehr here. I do think that the wrestling is going to be the difference maker. He should be mindful of that Bzdigian high elbow guillotine. And I just worry that he comes in here, panics on the feet when he's not having success, shoots in a sloppy takedown, and Daniel Bzdigian snatches up that neck. But I'm going to be picking Cobey Fehr to get this one done. Let's see who Carlos has got in this matchup.
Okay, in this one, I'm going to go with Cobey Fehr to get it done. And, he's got strong wrestling. Wrestling in Ohio is just very popular. It's very strong. And, from high school to college, a lot of the guys wrestle there, and it's very competitive. So I'm going to go with Fehr. I think he can dominate position to position. I think he can dominate if this fight takes place on the feet or on the mat. And Bzdigian, it looked like he has some submission abilities. Against lesser competition, I don't think he's going to be able to do anything to stop Fehr from taking him down or posing a threat of ending the fight by submission on the ground. But I do feel that their striking is probably about the same, both that I've seen. Striking doesn't look too impressive, but Fehr's training with a lot better talent, on a regular basis. So I'm going to go with Cobey Fehr to get it done.
And next up at PFL San Diego, we've got Ilara Joanne taking on Shannon Clark. Clark making her PFL debut here. Does fight over in the LFA, so obviously a good promotion to be able to come from and transition into a bigger organization like the PFL. And let's start off with Clark. She has been the champion over there. She's very muscle-bound. She's a very sort of brutish fighter in the way that she fights. I would actually describe her as almost a bully in the cage. And my comparison, the UFC fighter Andreas Gustafsson, who we were supposed to see fight this week, I would say it's a very similar style in the sense that she doesn't necessarily have a ton of output and a ton of cardio, but she wants to get you up against the fence. She wants to blast knees into the gut. She wants to be able to land elbows. She wants to make fights dirty and really use her size, muscularity to kind of force women into kind of her game plan. She doesn't want a back and forth technical striking exchange. She wants to get you in the clinch and just bully you. That reminds me very much of Andreas Gustafsson, obviously from the UFC. But I think the problem with Clark is on the feet at times, she leaves herself very exposed. You saw that in the Dana White's Contender Series performance where she fought against Eunice Dubin, where she was knocked out with that one punch early in the first round. She kind of blitzes you with punches, and at times that's really just to close the distance and kind of get double underhooks and get into the clinch. She had a nasty bulldog choke in one of her LFA performances, and a lot of her fights, she's not necessarily showing a ton of skill. I think she's more of an athlete than a skilled fighter. And when you talk about Ilara Joanne, Joanne is a fighter that she's fought the cream of the crop over in the PFL, over in Bellator. And obviously you look at her record and you don't necessarily think that she's the best fighter at 13-10, but some of her losses have come against some of the best women, Liz Carmouche, for example. There's no shame in losing to Liz Carmouche. She's a technical striker. At times she can get a little bit wild. You saw that in the Watanabe fight, that she came out and she was just trading on the feet, getting countered by Watanabe, who's mostly known as a grappler. A lot of grapplers look to take her down and submit her. That's where she's had a lot of difficulty throughout the course of her career, but her striking is a lot better than Clark. So on the feet, she's always going to be live for a knockout when Clark leaves her chin exposed when she's rushing into the pocket. But at this point, I find it really hard to trust Joanne. Joanne, she comes in as a technical striker. She seems to fall in love with the hands, not worry too much about the takedowns, get taken down, subbed, or beaten up on the ground and controlled. She'll play jiu-jitsu off of her back instead of trying to show urgency to get back to her feet. And I worry here that Clark is going to be able to come in, kind of bully her, get into the clinch, throw knees, land big shots, and ultimately get this fight to the ground at some point where we know Joanne is not going to be able to get back up. So I slightly lean to Clark, although I would not be surprised if Joanne is able to land a big right hand here down the pipe and put Clark out. But until then, until I see Joanne show some urgency to get back to her feet, until I see her stay technical in the pocket and really just get back to her roots of her striking element, I just cannot trust her. So give me Shannon Clark here to just bully her way to a victory. Let's see who Carlos has got in this matchup.
Okay, in this one, I'm going to go with Clark. Not the most confident pick because Joanne, she is pretty much a dog in these fights. Her record does not reflect that. When you watch her fights, you can see how tough she is. But I feel Clark's going to be able to strike just enough to hang with her, possibly enough that she won't get hurt on the feet, enough to close the distance, get to the clinch, and try to get this to the mat. But Joanne is just very physical, and that's the problem is. On the feet, she's going to try to bully her, and she's going to throw strikes, and she's going to march forward, walk her down, and start throwing some bombs. But when she walks forward to throw those bombs, she's going to be closing the distance for Clark, and Clark's just going to grab the back of that head and start to control the posture and, hopefully work to get this fight to the mat. And if it gets there, I feel that Clark, she's going to be the bigger fighter. She looks like a tank, and she should be able to control Joanne on the ground. I've seen her control other opponents, none probably the same caliber as Joanne, but it's not like Joanne can't fight on the ground, but she's easier to control once she's down there sometimes. She'll try to fight off her back instead of trying to get up. But I don't want to judge Clark off of that one punch knockout that she had on the Contender Series, but it's something to worry about because Joanne can come forward, and she will come forward, and she can crack. And if she hits her clean, she might have the same result. So I don't believe that's going to happen. I think Clark can take a shot a little better than was led on, and maybe she just never saw that punch coming. And I've seen Clark. She's been in a few wars, but she's always been the bully in those, and Joanne's not going to allow that to happen. So I'm going to go with Clark to get it done, but not the most confident.
And next up at PFL San Diego, we've got Gamid Khizriev taking on Lorenzo Parente. Parente, obviously the Scotsman, has jiu-jitsu skills. There's no doubt about that. We just saw that in the PFL Europe performance. Coming out, ended up on the ground. He was able to scramble, get to that arm bar, and ultimately that was all she wrote. And in a lot of these fights, the 25-year-old is able to come out and he's able to take most of his opponents down. Still only 4-0, but he's doing it in impressive fashion. He's got good jiu-jitsu. When it comes to his striking, it's really just touch and go. He's not necessarily throwing a ton of power into all of his shots. He's not coming out trying to look for that knockout. He knows where his bread is buttered in most of his fights. He's coming out looking for that early takedown. He's getting into scrambling exchanges, and he's using his jiu-jitsu to be able to pull off these victories, which I have to say is very impressive. But the problem with this fight here against Khizriev is from Dagestan. We all know what that means. That high-level wrestling out of Dagestan is going to be a problem for Parente, just purely because he's not going to be able to come forward and use his takedowns that have had such success so far in his career, and that's going to allow Khizriev to be able to dictate where this fight is going to take place. On the feet, Khizriev, he has nice kickboxing, a former Pancration champion as well, so even though he is only 4-0 in his professional MMA career, that is a great sport to transition from Pancration over to MMA because it allows grappling, it allows kickboxing, it allows all of the elements pretty much of MMA, and he's able to kind of mix that in and transition nicely into MMA. And if you go look at tape on him training out of the same gym as Timur Khizriev, he is actually the younger brother of the PFL Timur Khizriev, so a great training partner to have there. And I think that the problem with this matchup here is that Khizriev, he can decide if he wants to keep this one on the feet, level change, and take the fight to the ground whenever he wants to. As long as he's mindful of Parente's submission game off of his back, that is exactly how I see this one playing out. Khizriev's going to strike with him for a while. He's going to back him up with kicks. He's got great body kicks, great low calf kicks. And once Parente thinks they're going to be in a back and forth striking affair, Khizriev's going to change levels, time his takedowns, get on top, and Parente is just going to be playing jiu-jitsu off of his back, eating elbows, eating ground and pound. Khizriev does a good job of staying safe on the ground like a lot of these high-level Dagestani wrestlers do. And I think realistically in this fight, unless Parente can pull off some sort of Hail Mary guillotine or some sort of submission in a scramble, Khizriev, I think he's just going to be one step ahead. So give me Gamid, Khizriev here to get this one done. I think on the feet, he carries a little bit more power. And I think whenever he gets into trouble or whether he's not liking what's happening in the fight, he's always going to be able to level change and be the better wrestler. I think he's fought the higher level competition as well. Even though that Parente, looks impressive, I just think this is a step up in competition too far here. So give me Khizriev here to get this one done. I'm going to say he maybe gets some sort of late ground and pound finish. Let's see who Carlos has got in this matchup.
Okay, in this one, I'm going to go with Khizriev to get it done. And, both fighters, they look skilled. They look relaxed in the cage, and they look well-versed on the ground. Parente, he's looked like he's been able to take his opponents down with no problem, get the submission finishes in the ground and pounds. And Khizriev, same thing. Strong takedowns, runs the pipe smoothly. And you just hate to say that the Dagestani wrestler, because he's from Dagestan, is going to be a great wrestler, but he just happens to be pretty good. He's pretty solid, and I think he's just a little bit better than Parente when it comes to his takedown abilities. He seems to be fighting the guys that offer a little bit more resistance than the guys that Parente has been fighting. So whether they're better or not, I don't know, but they just seem to be like they're a level better than the competition that Parente has been fighting. And I just feel that striking, Khizriev does just enough to make you nervous enough for him to close the distance and get the takedowns. Parente, he seems to be a little bit more skilled standing up. He doesn't rip into everything. He's not trying to knock you out. But in his touch, he's landing clean and he's a little bit more accurate. So I'd give him the edge there. But whether you have the edge or not, you've got to stop the takedown. And I think that Khizriev, once he starts getting takedowns, he starts throwing punches, his striking is going to be a lot better. He's going to find ways to close the distance easier with his striking, just to distract, get him down, control him for the round. He may not get the finish with the submission, but I do feel he's going to control this fight where it takes place. So Khizriev to get it done.
And next up at PFL San Diego, we've got Sarvarjon Khamidov taking on Justin Wetzell. And let's start off with Justin Wetzell. Obviously, we've seen him now as a familiar face in the PFL. The PFL tournament didn't go his way. And he's obviously made a splash. The guy trains at Elevation. He trains with Corey Sandhagen. He has decent wrestling. He is big for the weight class. And sometimes he's able to bully a lot of his opponents in the wrestling exchanges. He's a little bit unorthodox on the feet, but he has a good counter-striking game. And obviously, he can push a pace in fights. So, as the fight goes on, Wetzell is usually getting stronger, providing that he's not been taken down or outstruck and hurt badly throughout the course of the fight. He is very tough. He is very gritty. But I think he's going to be out of his depths here against Khamidov. Khamidov, obviously 16-1 in his professional career. He was 16-0 before his last fight against Magomedov. And I think where he came unstuck is that, he is a Tajikistan team member in wrestling. Obviously, the national team in wrestling over in Tajikistan. High level wrestling. And he comes in looking to implement that grappling like you expect. The problem is, I think when he fought Magomedov, is that Magomedov was looking to do damage in between wrestling exchanges. That's what really won the eyes and the scoring in terms of the judges. I think Khamidov, he was coming in looking to grapple in an actual fight. And I think that's the problem with Khamidov overall. And I'd like to see him get into these dominant positions and really look to land ground and pound. He's got a couple of submissions on his record. I believe it's 5. And he is obviously looking to grapple. He is obviously looking to take the back. He was able to do that against Magomedov in moments. But I just think where he comes unstuck, like I said, is just that lack of damage. So I'd like to see him really put it all together and really land some damaging shots. Because in this fight against Wetzell, I do believe he's going to be able to get into dominant positions, ride out heavy top control in this particular fight. But if he's not doing damage against Wetzell, Wetzell might be able to come back in the third round. So I would like to see Khamidov here mix it up on the feet, level change, and then look to do damage once the fight hits the mat or he's able to take the back. He is very comfortable on the feet. We see a lot of grapplers, they come in, whether it's from high-level jiu-jitsu or wrestling, and they don't necessarily always look comfortable on the feet, whereas Khamidov looks good on the feet. He's got power, he's athletic, he's physically strong, and I think here mixing in his striking, getting to the ground and then ultimately landing ground and pound is really going to be the difference maker for him as he moves on throughout the course of his career. I think he should be able to get this one done here against Wetzell. I don't see him pulling off an upset here. We've obviously seen Wetzell come in before and play spoiler against other, high-level Russian wrestlers, but I just don't see it happening here. Give me Khamidov here to get this one done. Let's see who Carlos has got in this matchup.
Okay, in this one, I'm going to go with Commodore to get it done. And not that it's going to be an exciting fight, but Commodore, to have some success, he's going to have to wrestle like he does in every fight. He's going to have to get this fight in the clinch, get close the distance, use those short strikes on the inside, force Wetzell to pummel, try to get those arms exhausted, get him full of blood, take a little bit of sting off his strikes, and just try to control Wetzell on the ground, and make him work to get back up. Make him work even in the clinch. Make him pummel, make him work, make him have to carry your weight, and use mat returns. Anything to start to slow him down, wear on the gas tank, make this fight ugly. It's not going to be ugly in that fun way like Josh Hokett and Curtis Blades. It's just going to be a war of position and control. And I believe that that's what Wetzell's going to be resisting throughout the entire fight, just resistance and control. And it's going to be very hard to avoid because that's Commodore's style, is pressure, wrestling. And unfortunately, I think that that's what's going to prevail. It's not, like I said, I don't think it's going to be a fun fight, but I do feel that Commodore is going to get it done.
Next up at PFL San Diego, we've got Ariane de Silva taking on Jena Bishop. And if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button as we've got a classic striker versus grappler matchup here. Ariane de Silva, obviously a name that a lot of people will be familiar with over in the UFC, now transitioning into a PFL career. And obviously she was able to get a win in her last fight. She's got a nice technical kickboxing base. She does a good job of ending her combinations with kicks. She's got nice, tight, crisp boxing, throws nice straight shots, a nice 1-2. But the one kryptonite that she's had over the course of her career is she does get taken down and controlled, and she struggles with grapplers that are able to get her down and control her. And obviously on the other side here, she's going to have to worry about that with Jena Bishop. That's exactly what Bishop wants to come in here and do. Bishop has had, difficulties with powerful strikers and women that have good wrestling that can control her on the ground and stay safe. You go look at her losses. Her 3 losses come to Tyler Santos, somebody that has good wrestling that can control Bishop on the ground and isn't scared of that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And then you have Dakota Ditchever and Liz Carmouche, powerful punchers who carry power that Bishop cannot stand and trade with in the pocket. Thing is, in this matchup here against Silva is a technical kickboxer, but I don't think she has the power to really gain the respect of Bishop and catch her on the feet and really make her pay for coming in with sloppy takedowns. I think Bishop here has shown throughout the course of her career, you go back and look at the Watanabe fight, for example, that she will mix it up on the feet. She will dog it out. She will throw a lot of shots, whether that's overhands, wild hooks, just to get into distance, to close the distance, to get into clinch positions, to be able to go for takedowns. And I think the thing is, even though her wrestling isn't high level, she mixes everything in and kind of gets people worried about the overhand or, kind of shots that are coming up so that she can level change and kind of just drag you to the ground. And once the fight hits the mat, she has great top control and she is able to find the submission in most of her fights. And I think if you look at Silva, yes, sure, she's going to be the better striker, and I expect her to have success throughout the course of this fight until Bishop is able to get the fight to the ground. I think if Bishop gets the fight to the ground with at least a minute and a half left in a round, I think she's going to be able to find the finish on the ground with the sub. I just think that Silva is going to be winning this fight until she gets taken down. It's going to be all Silva, and then Bishop is going to take over once the fight hits the mat. Even though her takedowns aren't that good, I expect her at some point to be able to control Silva on the ground. I think once she does, she's going to be too much for her, and she's going to be able to find that submission and play spoiler. Even at 40 years old, I think Jena Bishop still has more to give. That black belt's not going anywhere, and I think that Silva on the feet, although she is credentialed and skilled and fought over in the UFC, we see some of these UFC guys come over to the PFL and not necessarily shine. So I don't necessarily think that Ariane de Silva has that one-punch power to get the respect of Bishop. I'm going to lean to Bishop here to get this one done and play spoiler. Let's see who Carlos has got in this matchup.
Okay, in this one, I'm going to go with De Silva to get it done. And, Bishop, she's going to come out strong like she always does. And she's always game to strike and get in her opponent's face and get them on their back foot and get them up against the cage and start working takedowns from there. But De Silva, she's going to be a problem in the clinch. She has good posture, and she's going to probably control Bishop's head in the clinch. She's very effective at that. And she's going to rip knees to the body and knees to the head and soften up Bishop and elbows to the head. And if Bishop could wrestle, I would take her. I would say once she gets her down, it's a lock. She's going to get the submission. But she's going to take a lot of punishment from De Silva before that happens. So I'm going to go with Ariane De Silva to get it done.
And next up at PFL San Diego, we've got Khasan Magomedsharipov taking on Joshua Weems. And let's talk about Weems a little bit here. He has been participating in every martial art that you could imagine under the sun. He's been competing in MMA for a while. He's been doing bare knuckle boxing over with Game Bred Promotions. He's been competing in grappling competitions. And either way, I don't think any of that matters here because I think that Sharipov is going to be able to win this fight wherever he wants to. The actual brother here, the younger brother of Zabit, and obviously a guy that's well-rounded. We've seen him now 10-0. He can get it done on the ground. He can get it done on the feet. He's got lightning fast kicks. He's got spinning attacks. He'll jump off the cage and throw Superman punches. He'll throw spinning back fists. He really has a well-rounded arsenal for Weems to really have to worry about here. And Sharipov, the way I see this fight playing out is I think whether he wants to take Weems seriously or not, I see him getting the finish, whether it's on the feet or on the ground. He's going to be a big favorite for a reason. As of recording right now, there are no odds out for these fights, but I think that Sharipov here, I think that he's going to be able to, providing he doesn't play with his food, he's going to be able to get that finish. On the feet, when he's standing and trading, he can be a little bit low output at times. He will kind of bounce around out at range, using his kicks to kind of dictate range and poke and prod at his opponent. When he gets into the clinch, he will use body lock and trip takedowns. He's kind of dragging you to the mat. It's not that, kind of stereotypical Dagestani Russian wrestling where he's running the pipe or going for singles or shooting in for doubles. It's very much get you in the clinch, get into underhooks, drag you to the ground, and really control you and beat you up from there. He transitions nicely into half guard. He uses his elbows to soften you up. He's not necessarily playing jiu-jitsu. He's really using all facets of MMA in order to be able to find a victory, and he's very well-rounded. He has good cardio, and I just don't really see a way that Weems is going to have success here. He's undersized. He's going to be at a height and reach discrepancy, and to me, Weems is also somebody that, even if you go and look at his MMA career, you kind of wash away all of the grappling, all of the bare knuckle, you look at his UFC record, you look at his MMA record, he's getting finished in a ton of fights. All 6 of his losses he's getting finished. I think this is just going to be a lamb to the slaughter fight. So give me Khasan Magomedsharipov here as a confident favorite to get this one done inside the distance. Let's see who Carlos has got in this matchup.
In this one, I'm going to go with Magomedsharipov to get it done. And this is a short breakdown. I just think Weems is just not on the level of the wrestling and the grappling of Khasan. And Khasan's a better overall athlete, but his striking is tight, it's sharp, it's quick. He looks dangerous on the feet. Even though he's not too dangerous, when he's striking, it's pretty much just to back up his opponents as a distraction to get him to the mat, implement his grappling. But if I had to give Weems a little bit of an edge, I'd say it's inexperience, obviously, and probably the striking. And not that he's a better striker, but he's a little bit more comfortable striking. So I think if Magomedsharipov stays on the feet more, he'll find that Weems could be a little bit more resilient and he can pressure him a little bit more. So mixing in the takedowns, he'll probably end this within the distance by submission. So Magomedsharipov to get it done.
And next up at PFL San Diego, we've got Abraham Babley taking on Rob Wilkinson. And if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button, as these two couldn't be on further trajectories from each other. Abraham Babley is on a 3-fight win streak, all coming via way of first-round knockout. Rob Wilkinson, 3-fight skid, 1 by submission, 1 by a knockout, and 1 by unanimous decision. And let's start off with Rob Wilkinson, a very well-rounded, good entity inside the PFL, a name that a lot of people will be familiar with if they have seen the PFL and they're not new to the PFL. Wilkinson, well-rounded. He has a good ability to be able to get fights to the ground. He looks to wrestle a lot more at this point in his career. And if you look at his overall stand-up and his overall body of work, he has fought the who's who inside the PFL. And I think the problem with Wilkinson here is that when he's standing and trading on the feet, he's a little bit of a step slow now. He has nice fundamental boxing and he will throw the occasional kick, but I think he's struggling to keep up with the speed of a lot of the people he's fighting on the feet. That's why he's mixing in a ton of grappling and he's using a lot of his wrestling at this point at 34 years old. I think he wants to get people up against the fence. He wants to use his wrestling, save his chin, not have to get in exchanges with athletic guys. And I think it's at a detriment. I don't think that he's as well-rounded as he used to be. And I think him falling back on his wrestling causes him to basically get more tired. And ultimately, it puts him in a ton of danger. You know, when he fought against Luke Trainer, that got him in trouble getting submitted. Phil Davis is far too athletic and powerful for him. And I just think that on the feet, he's not technical, he's not fast enough. And if you look at Abraham Babley, he couldn't be further opposite of Wilkinson right now. He started off as a wrestler. He started off as his ability to be able to get fights to the ground, get into dominant positions and land ground and pound. Now he's knocking people out on the feet. He's more comfortable from fight to fight. And it shows in the last 3 knockouts that he's had, all coming by way of knockout in the first round. He looks so comfortable, so technical on the feet. He carries power for 205, even though he's only 5'10". And you can see from his build that he carries a ton of power. So for me, it's going to be very difficult to trust Rob Wilkinson, even though I think that he's got that experience, even though I think that he could pummel and make this fight dirty and make it gritty up against the fence, take away the power of Babley and lean on the arms. I just can't trust Rob Wilkinson right now, so I'm going to have to go with Abraham Babley. I wouldn't be surprised if he finds the knockout and makes it 4 in a row. Sometimes MMA is tricky because guys, you know, when they're on a decline, it kind of goes that way. We've seen it time and time again. You know, Tony Ferguson, prime example. When it hits, it just hits. And sometimes when the momentum's on your side, you ride that train all the way to the top. So give me Abraham Babley here. He's on the train. He's on the momentum train right now. He looks comfortable. He seems well-rounded. He's fighting better competition. And let's see if this step up here against Rob Wilkinson, he can pull it off. But give me Abraham Babley here. I'm going to say he finds the knockout maybe in round 2 this time. Maybe Wilkinson controls him up against the fence early in round 1, but ultimately gets knocked out as the fight goes on. Let's see who Carlos has got in this matchup.
Okay, in this one, I'm going to go with Babley to get it done. And I do think dropping some weight would be a good idea for Babley if there was like a 225-pound weight class. But I understand he's 5'10", he's 240-ish. But I just think when a fighter's got a lot of weight in his lower body, you know, the lower body is heavy. It carries a lot of muscle. And it's very difficult to get those weight cuts. And you're going to have to lose a lot of muscle. And the problem being is then it comes down to how do you take shots? You know, do you have enough sting on your own shots? You may be a little bit quicker because you're a little lighter, but can you hit as effective as you did as when you're a heavyweight? Or, you know, how's your cardio? Like, can you push the pace? Can you wrestle as much as you used to as a heavyweight? So those are the things you got to find out. How can you take a shot, you know? Little things like that, little factors, but, you know, and Wilkinson's not a bum. He can fight. He's a tough guy, but Babley's still going to have to get through the height and the reach advantage of Wilkinson. And Wilkinson, you know, he's dropped a couple fights in the last couple, but you know, he's been fighting some good fighters, so that's not really a knock on him. It's just how's he going to handle somebody as fast or as quick as Babley? And I think that's going to pose a lot of issues for him. So I think Babley's going to be able to get in on those hips, get the takedown, get him up against the cage, and be able to get the takedowns whenever he needs to. And that's not saying that Wilkinson can't hurt him. I think the speed is going to cause a lot of issues, and Babley is a mover, and I think that the movement's going to cause a lot of issues as well. And I just feel that Wilkinson being a little stiff on the feet. Sometimes, you know, he's trying to be light on his feet, but he can't help it. He's a little heavy in his movements, and Babley being a little light on his feet, being a little quicker, I think it's going to make it easy for him to get inside on Wilkinson. So I'm going to go with Abraham Babley to get it done.
And next up at PFL San Diego, we've got Alfie Davis taking on Alexander Shabliy. Give me Shabliy in this matchup. Obviously, this is a rematch. Both of these guys fought a few years ago. Shabliy was able to come out on the right side of that. And let's talk about Alfie Davis first here. 34 years old. The Axeman, he's known for that axe kick. And if you ever get a chance to watch Alfie Davis's highlights, he has a fantastic array of kicks. He will always be the one backing up, though. That's my one critique of him, is he's not able to get the respect of a lot of his opponents. He will be dancing around on the outside. He'll be getting pressured up against the fence. And the problem with a lot of his fights is that when he has to worry about the takedowns of his opponent, along with the striking, he's kind of picking between two poisons. He's not necessarily known for being good at grappling. He has been taken down and controlled in the past. We saw that against Usman Nurmagomedov. He was able to take him down and submit him. And I think the problem here against Shabliy is that I don't see this fight being any different from their first first fight. Shabliy, a very technical kickboxer. He carries power in the hands. And I think that Davis's kicks, even though he has a wide array of kicks, spinning back kicks, spinning wheel kicks, and that axe kick that he's famous for, and hence the nickname, he lacks in the boxing and he lacks in the hands. He has good counter striking at times when people crash into the pocket, but when he fights other technical strikers like Shabliy, they're able to kind of counter him and then kind of wait on him to be able to throw his punches, and then they time the takedown as he throws the hands. When he throws spinning attacks, people level change on him, and I could see Shabliy doing that here. And I think the problem here as well is that Shabliy probably has the better boxing out of the two. So when he's pressuring Davis up against the fence, he's going to wait for, throw out feints, make Davis react to those feints. As he throws, Shabliy's going to look to counter. And I think the problem here is that with Shabliy, he fights against guys who are just as high level as Davis all the time. Whereas Davis, even though he went on that winning streak, I think we all knew it was going to come to an end at some point when he was going to get taken down and have to worry about the technical striking of Usman along with the wrestling. And I think guys that can be multi-versatile, kind of be that Swiss Army knife in MMA, I think they're the guys that give Alfie Davis problems. When he fought against Brent Primus, you only have to worry about the takedowns. And that one element allows Alfie Davis to kind of just mind his P's and Q's, but then allows him to feel comfortable in the striking. And I just think that Davis never feels really comfortable against a guy like Shabliy, who's going to be pressuring him, throwing feints, giving him a lot to think about, and then all of a sudden he's got to worry about a level change. Then he has to worry about getting back to his feet. When he does that, that saps the energy. Then he's going to have to worry about Shabliy's boxing. I just think it's going to be too much for him, and I ultimately think that Shabliy's going to get his hand raised again here in this rematch. He should get this one done, even though he is coming off of almost a 2-year layoff, one due to a fight cancellation, the other due to a 6-month drug ban. I do think that Shabliy is more well-rounded, and I do think that his versatility is going to cause Alfie Davis problems here. So give me Alexander Shabliy to get this one done. Let's see who Carlos has got in this matchup.
Okay, in this one, I'm going to go with Shabliy to get it done. I think Shabliy is very difficult to deal with because he's a very good counter striker and he has good takedown defense and he has enough power to make his opponents pay for when they miss or make a big mistake. And Davis, he's a little bit more confident in his abilities now than back in 2021 when they first fought. Shabliy, I think he can control this fight on the ground if he wanted to with wrestling or up against the cage in the clinch. But he's not going to do that. He never usually uses the wrestling if he doesn't have to. But I feel that Davis is going to have to take some chances, and he's going to have to try to create some openings and probably lunging in for some attacks. But in those instances when it happens, I feel Shabliy, that's where his counters are going to get highlighted. I think he's going to find the openings right there on Davis because Shabliy is very accurate, but he doesn't push the pace. He'll just stalk and he'll wait for the opening. So he'll be ready to go when Davis is ready to open up. But I do feel it's going to be a little bit of a boring matchup. Both guys are pretty good counter strikers and they're waiting for the opening. And a lot of times they don't necessarily force it. Like I said, Davis takes more chances than Shabliy. But I do feel that in those chances Davis takes, that's where the constant pressure of Shabliy and his accurate counter striking is going to be an issue, and those are probably going to be the moments that help him win the fight. So I'm going to go with Shabliy to get it done.
And that brings us to the co-main event here for PFL San Diego. If you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button as we've got Liz Carmouche taking on Viviane Araujo. A new name for Liz Carmouche to batter and butcher, huh? Liz Carmouche should be able to get this one done, in my opinion. She's too big, too strong, too physical here for a lot of these women to handle. And even at 42, I mean, she probably needs to be drug tested. Let's just throw that out there. But she's just too much for a lot of them. And I think the problem with her is, again, it's pick your poison. She can drag you to the ground. She can get in your face. She can get you in the clinch, beat you up, take you to the ground, ultimately, and submit you. Or she can just knock you out on the feet. She carries a lot of one-punch power. She's very physically strong. And I think a lot of the females that she fights just can't deal with that pressure and that size and that strength that she carries. Viviane Araujo, obviously, a lot of people are going to remember her from her UFC days. She is very well-rounded. She's got a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She wants to be able to implement her grappling, and on the feet she stays very technical, but she leaves holes in her grappling along with her striking, and I just think that Liz Carmouche here is going to be too much. She should be able to get the finish here against Viviane Araujo. I could see her, getting taken down and controlled, beaten up with ground and pound and subbed. I could see her getting knocked out on the feet. Either way, short breakdown from me. It's going to be a Liz Carmouche victory here by probably some sort of finish, whether that's submission, whether that's club and sub, whether that's TKO, whether that's knockout. I just expect it to be another Liz Carmouche victory. I just don't see where Araujo is going to be able to shine in this fight, because Carmouche is going to be too physically strong for her in the clinch. She's going to be able to drag her to the ground whenever she wants. And unless Viviane Araujo is able to land some sort of Hail Mary bomb or, a submission off of her back, which I highly doubt, I just don't see her being able to pull off the victory here. So short, sweet, simple. Give me Liz Carmouche by finish. Let's see who Carlos has got in this matchup.
Yeah, in this one, I'm going to go with Araujo to get it done. And I just think that Carmouche, she's still a beast. She's just getting a little older, and Araujo really isn't that much further behind her. But I do feel Araujo's got the ability to be a better athlete. She's got a little bit more reach. And I think on her strike, she's got a little bit more sting than Carmouche. I think she could be a little bit more accurate, probably pressure a little bit more. I find Carmouche to be a little slower, looks a little stiff when striking, even though she's gotten a lot better. I just feel that Araujo, she's a mover. She's an athlete. And Carmouche has had issues with that when she's fought Valentina Shevchenko, Tyler Santos. She's had problems like keeping them in one spot and being able to just hold them down. And I think Araujo brings that same bit of problematic nature to this fight, and I feel that her movement is going to be an issue. I feel that her striking is going to be an issue. I do think Carmouche, if she can get her down, and she can probably control her, if she gets her down there. Carmouche is still very strong, very good grappling, but Araujo is not a slouch on the ground either. She's very talented, and I also think that in a scramble, she's a little smoother, a little quicker, and she can get to a better spot than Carmouche, and probably take advantage of her down there as well. But I'm going to go with Araujo. I think she can hurt Carmouche on the feet, and I think that she's a little bit better of an athlete and can probably get a better of the scrambling exchanges. So Araujo to get it done.
And that brings us to the main event here for PFL San Diego. If you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button, as we've got AJ McKee Jr. taking on Salamat Isbulaev. I got him wrong, and I have to start off with an apology here. When you go back and look at the tape on this guy, his 10-0 career, his level of competition is poor. Let's just say that. The guys that he's beating in his 10-0 career until his last fight in the PFL against Jesus Pineda, it wasn't all that. So it was really tough to get a read on him. He's coming out, he's getting these early finishes, and it's really tough to really get a gauge on how good his actual skill set is. He's very well-rounded. He's light on his feet. He's a physical specimen. The guy is absolutely jacked at 5'7" here at 145. But it's hard to get a gauge on how good he actually is when he's finishing low-level guys. And he proved me wrong in his last fight against Jesus Pineda. He was able to get that first round finish from the crucifix with elbows. He was able to take Jesus Pineda down with a well-timed takedown. On the feet, they was very measured. He really frustrated Jesus Pineda. And when he was able to capitalize and get the takedown, he carved through his guard like a knife through butter. And Isbulaev has a very decorated amateur background. Even though he's 10-0 inside of the professional ranks, this guy has been fighting on the amateur scene at the highest level for a very long time. So he is very, very well-rounded. So that 10-0 may as well be 30-0. The guy is very, very well-rounded. It's just a case of, is he going to be able to get this done when he gets these big names in front of him? And I was surprised he was able to pull it off against Jesus Pineda. Now he's got AJ McKee standing in front of him, a well-decorated grappler, 26 professional fights. He's obviously getting better in the stand-up, and we know with AJ McKee that he shines on the ground. He wants to look to take your back. He wants to be able to implement his grappling and his wrestling. Coming in here as the bigger guy at 5'10", he wants to be able to take Isbulaev down, submit him. That's probably AJ McKee's his game overall, and what he wants to look to do in most of his fights, not just here against Isbulaev. I just don't see him being able to do it here. I just think that if he gets to the ground, I think Isbulaev is going to be able to sprawl. He's going to be able to scramble. He's going to be able to get into dominant positions himself. And I think on the feet, he's far too fast. If you look at him, he's darting in and out of range. He's lightning quick on the feet, not just with the hands, but the footwork. He's darting in and out of the pocket. He's landing shots. His hand speed and his foot speed is going to be a real problem for AJ McKee, not just for the striking, but his ability to be able to corral him, to be able to get a takedown. It's all well and good being the bigger guy, but if you can't get Isbulaev up against the fence to be able to corral him to get a takedown, it's going to be difficult to get a takedown out in the open. He's going to have to time that takedown, and even then, I think that Isbulaev has got the cardio, he's got the well-rounded ability to be able to scramble and get back to his feet or get into a dominant position, looking to do damage. All 10 of those wins have come come via finish. So we haven't seen him dragged into deep waters, and I think that's going to be the best path to victory here for McKee. In this main event, he's going to have to bite down on his mouthpiece. He's going to have to trade with him, time a well-timed takedown, and really wear on Isbulaev. Get a lot of top control, wear on him, beat him up, go to the body when he's on the ground, really soften him up and drag him into deep waters and see what he's like when you drag him into those deep waters, because nobody's been able to take him there. And unfortunately, until we see that, I'm going to have to go with Isbulaev here. I just think that that finishing upside is definitely something to behold. He's very well versed. He's going to be too fast, and I just don't see AJ being able to control him up against the fence here. So give me Salamat Isbulaev here to pull off. I guess it might be an upset. He might even be the favorite when the odds come out as a well-rounded guy who's 10-0 coming off of that upset against Jesus Pineda, but we'll have to see. But give me Isbulaev here to get this one done in this main event of PFL San Diego. And let's see who Carlos has got in this main event.
Okay, in this one, I'm going to go with McKee to get it done. And, Isbulaev is he's a strong wrestler that's very quick, very strong, decent striking technique. But I just feel he's a bit undersized for the weight class. And, maybe he's got all the good technique because he can strike pretty good. He does have good technique on his striking, and his wrestling looks solid. But I just feel that he just looks undersized for the weight class. And I also think that McKee he's going to get him down a few times, but I feel that if this fight's going to be won, it'll be won in the scrambles, not in the takedowns, because I don't feel that Isbulaev can actually control McKee on the mat. It's going to be hard to get him down against the cage, and it's going to be hard to keep McKee down. And I think Isbulaev striking, like I was talking about earlier, it's a little tighter. It looks a little bit more dangerous, like he can hit a little bit harder. And it looks a little bit sharper than McKee, but neither one is very tactical striker. They just kind of throw it, and they throw it well. Isbulaev throws a hard strike out there, and McKee just kind of throws out there. You don't know when the hard one's coming, but most of them are touch strikes. But McKee does step in with every strike, so that's also going to create the chance for Isbulaev to get the takedowns, to successfully get the takedowns. But I don't know if he's actually going to be able to use that takedown. Once he gets it down, implement some ground and pound and get some top control, I don't know if he can do that against McKee. McKee has had success against strong wrestlers like Ahmed Magomedov. He was taken down. He was able to stop some of the takedowns as well. But when he was taken down, he was able to reverse position to get to his back and get control. And, I just think Magomedov was a lot bigger than someone like Isbulaev. And I feel that if McKee can do that with him, he could probably do that with Isbulaev. And I just feel that this fight will probably be won in the scrambles. And although Isbulaev, I think, is the better athlete of the two, I just feel that McKee he's very difficult to keep in one spot. And with those long strikes that he's going to throw, it's gonna have to force Isbulaev to think how he's going to get inside without getting touched up. So I'm going to go with McKee to get it done. I'm just not too sure because Isbulaev's quick, he's explosive, and he might land something that might hurt him. So who knows? But I'm going to go with McKee to get this one done.
And there you have it, folks. PFL San Diego in the books. If you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button and check out some of our other videos on the channel. We've got UFC this week over in Baku, Azerbaijan. Great card there. Khizriev taking on Torres. We've got a full card betting guide. We've got Dog of the Week, looking to make it 5 of our last 6 betting all underdog plays. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.